How to correct a pinched nerve. A neck causing arm pain or rhomboid pain. It starts small. A tight feeling in your neck, a dull ache between your shoulder blades. You stretch it, you rub it, you ignore it, but the pain keeps coming back. And it's spreading down your arm, into your fingers. What if the real problem isn't your shoulder or your back? What if it's a single nerve, quietly being crushed every single day? By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which 4 movements can open that space back up. And one warning sign, that means you shouldn't wait another day. Stay with us. Welcome back to Dr. Lee. If you're joining us for the first time, consider this your invitation to stay a while. We put together videos just like this one, clear, simple, and made with you in mind, every single week. So here's a small favor to ask. Hit that subscribe button. It takes less than a second, but it means you'll never miss the next video that could save you months of unnecessary pain. And while you're here, we'd love to know you. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from today. City, country, doesn't matter. We rate every single one, and it always makes our day to see just how many places this channel reaches. Now, let's get into it. It begins with something so small, most people miss it completely. A tight feeling at the base of the neck. A dull ache between the shoulder blades. Nothing that seems urgent. Nothing that seems dangerous. But for millions of people, this small feeling is the first sign of a much bigger problem. One that quietly builds, day after day, until it can no longer be ignored. The problem starts in a very specific place. Deep inside the neck, nerves branch out from the spine and travel down into the shoulder, the upper back, and the arm. For these nerves to work properly, they need space. A small gap between the bones of the spine allows each nerve to pass through freely, without pressure, without interruption. But that space is not fixed. It can shrink. And when it shrinks, the nerve gets caught, pinched between bone and tissue that were never meant to touch it. This is what experts call a pinched nerve. And once it happens, the body starts sending signals. Signals most people misread completely. A sharp pain in the shoulder, a burning ache across the rhomboid area, that flat muscle between the shoulder blades. A dull pain that runs down the arm, sometimes reaching all the way to the fingers. Most people treat these symptoms one at a time. They rub their shoulder, they stretch their back, they ice their arm. But none of it works, because none of it addresses the real issue. The nerve is still compressed, the space is still closed, and so the pain keeps coming back. To understand why this space closes in the first place, it helps to look at how the neck is used every single day. Modern life places enormous demand on this one small area of the body. Hours spent looking down at a phone, hours spent hunched over a desk, hours spent sleeping in positions that quietly compress the neck without any awareness at all. Over time, this constant forward posture pulls the neck out of its natural alignment. The space between the vertebrae narrows. The nerve loses room to move, and the body pays the price, not immediately, but gradually, silently, until one day the pain becomes impossible to ignore. This is the part most people never learn. The pain in the shoulder is not really a shoulder problem. The ache in the rhomboid is not really a muscle problem. These are downstream effects, messages sent from a nerve that is being crushed somewhere else entirely. And this is exactly why so many people struggle to find relief. They chase the pain instead of the cause. They treat where it hurts instead of where it starts. The good news is this: the same mechanism that causes this problem can also reverse it. If the space around the nerve can be closed by poor posture and strain, it can also be reopened, deliberately, safely, and without any special equipment. There are 3 specific movements capable of doing this: retraction, traction, and lateral flexion. Each one works on the same principle, creating space where the nerve has lost it. Used correctly, they don't just mask the pain, they target the actual source of it. But before any of these movements are introduced, one thing must be made absolutely clear. Not every case is the same. For some people, this is simple tension that responds quickly to the right movement. For others, especially when numbness or weakness is involved, it may be a sign of something deeper, something that requires medical attention, not exercise. Knowing the difference is critical, and by the end of this series, that difference will be made completely clear. For now, one fact remains at the center of everything. The nerve is not the enemy, the lost space around it is. And in the next part, the first 2 movements designed to reclaim that space, retraction and traction, will be broken down step by step. Because understanding the problem is only the beginning. Knowing exactly how to fix it is where the real relief begins. By the time part 1 ends, one thing is clear: the pain is real, the cause is real, and the solution starts with movement, not random movement, but movement built on a precise mechanical principle. That principle is space, creating it, reclaiming it, giving the nerve room to breathe again. The first movement designed to do this is called retraction. It sounds technical, but the idea behind it is simple. Retraction means drawing the head gently backward in a straight line without tilting or bending. Most people have never done this movement in their life. Not because it's difficult, but because nothing in daily life requires it. Looking at a phone doesn't require it. Sitting at a desk doesn't require it. In fact, almost everything about modern posture pulls the neck in the opposite direction. This is exactly why retraction matters so much. To begin, the person lies back, with the neck supported and hanging just off the edge of a bed or a bench. The chin tucks inward, gently, without force. Then, using the hands for support, the head lowers slowly, only as far as it comfortably allows. At this point, something important happens. A subtle stretch appears at the base of the neck, right where the joints meet the upper back. This is not pain. This is space being created. Once this position feels stable, a second element is added: traction. While the chin stays tucked, the hands gently pull the head away from the body, creating a slow, controlled stretch along the length of the neck. This is held for a few seconds, then slowly released. The motion is simple, but the effect is significant. Traction increases the space between the vertebrae even further, giving the compressed nerve additional room to recover. 10 slow repetitions is usually enough to feel a noticeable shift. But here's the part most people overlook. The body always gives a warning sign when something is wrong. If this motion causes pain, either in the neck itself or shooting down the arm, that is not a signal to push through. It is a signal to stop. At that stage, the area is likely too inflamed for exercise. And ice, along with professional evaluation, becomes the safer path forward. Once retraction and traction feel manageable, the second movement comes into play: lateral flexion. This movement targets a different part of the same problem. While retraction and traction open space along the length of the neck, lateral flexion opens space specifically on one side, the side where the nerve is being compressed. To perform it, one arm rests gently behind the back, keeping the shoulder low and relaxed. For those who feel discomfort in this position, holding the underside of a chair achieves the same effect, without added strain on the shoulder. From here, the chin tucks in and back, and the head tilts slowly away from the painful side. This is not a large movement. It is small, controlled, and deliberate. The person holds the position briefly, then looks down toward the hip before returning to the starting point. 10 slow repetitions, moving only in the direction away from the pain, is enough to begin creating change. A gentle stretch should be felt along the side of the neck, a sign that the joints on that side are beginning to open. What makes this movement so important is precision. Movement in the wrong direction can tighten the very space the exercise is meant to open. This is why direction matters as much as motion itself. Together, these two techniques, retraction with traction and lateral flexion, form the foundation of nerve decompression. They are not random stretches. They are targeted corrections, built on the same principle introduced in Part 1, reclaiming space the nerve has lost. But the neck does not operate in isolation. Above it sits the head, below it sits the upper back. And when the upper back falls out of alignment, it forces the neck to compensate in ways that can undo even the best corrective movement. That compensation, and how to correct it, is where the next part begins. By Part 3, a pattern starts to emerge. The neck rarely acts alone. Every joint above it and every joint below it plays a role in whether that nerve stays free or stays trapped. And there is one region working against the neck more than any other: the upper back. Specifically, the mid-back, the section running just below the neck and just above the rhomboids. Most people never think about this area at all. They think about the neck when it hurts. They think about the shoulder when it aches. But the mid-back works silently in the background, shaping how the neck is forced to sit, hour after hour. Here's the mechanism. When the mid-back rounds forward, from sitting, from screens, from years of habit, the neck cannot stay neutral. It has no choice but to extend backward, just to keep the eyes level. And that backward extension does something specific. It closes the very space the nerve depends on. This means a person could perform every neck exercise correctly and still struggle, because the real restriction is sitting one level below in a part of the body they never suspected. This is where the third movement comes in. Unlike the first two, this exercise doesn't target the neck directly. It targets the mid-back, the root of the compensation pattern itself. The position is simple. Kneeling works best, though sitting in a chair works just as well for those with knee discomfort. The hands rest gently on, or just in front of the knees. From here, the movement begins in one direction, rounding the mid-back outward, chin dropping gently toward the chest, eyes toward the stomach. Then, slowly, the direction reverses. The chest lifts and opens. The mid-back arches. The head begins to lift, but only the head, never the chin. The chin stays tucked the entire time. This detail matters more than it seems. Lifting the chin turns a corrective movement into a repeat of the same problem, closing the very space this whole process is trying to open. Done correctly, the neck extends only slightly, guided by an open chest and a lifted upper back, not by tilting the head back. 10 slow repetitions, always staying within a comfortable range, begin to retrain a pattern that took years to form. Once this movement feels familiar, the fourth and final exercise comes into play, and it works differently from everything before it. Where the first three movements open space through motion, this one works through stillness. It targets the deep neck flexors, a set of small, often weak muscles at the very front of the neck, hidden beneath the more obvious muscles most people are aware of. These deep muscles rarely get used in daily life, and when they stay weak, the larger, more superficial neck muscles are forced to compensate, tightening, gripping, and adding even more pressure around an already irritated nerve. To activate them, the neck stays in a relaxed, slightly tucked position. Both thumbs press gently beneath the chin. Then, the chin attempts to press downward, while the thumbs resist that motion. Nothing moves, but everything works. This small, resisted effort recruits the deep flexors directly, while producing something unexpected, a gentle traction sensation along the back of the neck, the same relief created by the very first exercise in this series. 5 seconds of resistance, repeated 5 to 10 times, is often enough. At this stage, one more detail becomes important: timing. For those dealing with sharper, more intense pain, jumping straight into movement can backfire. In these cases, ice applied to the base of the neck 3 times a day, for 10 minutes at a time, over a few days, often needs to come first. Only once that inflammation settles does the body respond well to movement. And there is one clear way to know progress is happening. The pain begins to move, not disappear immediately. Move. Slowly, the ache in the arm, or the tightness in the rhomboid area, begins retreating back toward the base of the neck, where it started. That shift is the clearest sign the nerve is finally recovering the space it lost. But movement in ice can only do so much if the daily habit causing the problem never changes. And that habit, the one repeated hundreds of times a day, almost without notice, is exactly where the final part of this series begins. Part 4 begins where the real problem usually starts, not in a hospital, not in a clinic, but in bed, on a sofa, in the quiet moments most people never think twice about. The single biggest cause of a pinched nerve in the neck has nothing to do with exercise, age, or injury. It comes down to one habit, repeated hundreds of times a day: looking down. Specifically, looking down at a phone for long stretches, with the neck bent forward and unsupported. This position seems harmless. It feels comfortable in the moment, but every minute spent this way adds pressure to the exact space this entire series has focused on reopening. The neck was never designed to hold this position for extended periods. Yet for most people today, it happens constantly. In bed, before sleep, on a sofa, after work, during quiet moments scattered throughout the day. And here is the uncomfortable truth. No amount of exercise can outpace a habit repeated this often. The 4 movements covered in this series can create space. But if that space is closed again within the hour, through the same posture, progress resets before it even begins. This is why lasting relief depends on one simple shift: changing how the phone is held, not eliminating its use altogether. The correction is straightforward. Instead of holding the phone low in the lap, forcing the neck to bend forward, the phone is lifted higher. One hand holds the phone at a level closer to the eyes. The other hand supports that elbow, reducing strain and making the position easier to hold for longer periods. This single adjustment keeps the neck in a far more neutral position, protecting the space around the nerve instead of closing it. For those who prefer using a phone while lying down, a specific detail matters just as much. Lying on the side, rather than on the back, allows the neck to stay in a more neutral position while looking at a device. Looking upward from a flat position, on the other hand, places the neck into extension, increasing compression and inflammation in a nerve that is already irritated. There is one more detail worth understanding clearly. Leaning toward the painful side may feel like relief in the moment, but it does the opposite. It adds pressure to the very side already under strain, making recovery slower, not faster. Avoiding this simple habit can make a measurable difference on its own. Alongside posture correction, one more piece of this puzzle deserves close attention: the sensations coming from the arm and hand. A pinched nerve can sometimes cause brief pins and needles or a short period of numbness, especially after sleeping in an awkward position. In most cases, this passes within a minute or two, easing off once normal movement resumes. This kind of short-lived sensation is common and not typically a cause for alarm, but there is a clear line where this changes. If numbness lasts for several minutes at a time, or if weakness appears in the hand or arm, struggling to grip, struggling to lift, a noticeable loss of strength, this is no longer something to manage through posture or exercise alone. At that point, the appropriate next step is a direct conversation with a doctor, along with an MRI, to properly examine the discs and structures within the spine. This distinction matters because it separates 2 very different situations. One is mechanical tension, responsive to posture correction and targeted movement. The other may involve structural changes that require medical evaluation, not home exercises. Recognizing the difference early prevents a manageable issue from developing into something far more serious. Taken together, the 4 parts of this series form a complete picture. Understanding the mechanism, reclaiming space through retraction and traction, correcting compensation through lateral flexion and mid-back mobility, strengthening the deep neck flexors, and now protecting that progress through daily posture habits. Good posture is not a minor detail in this process. It is the foundation that determines whether relief lasts or simply repeats the same cycle. For those who suspect posture has played a larger role than they realized, a closer look at posture itself is worth exploring further. That's where the conversation continues next, right here on Dr. Lee. If this series helped bring clarity to a problem that's been building for a while, consider sharing it with someone who's been dealing with the same discomfort in silence. And as always, we'd love to hear from you, where you're watching from, and how this has helped.